Good morning, good afternoon, all our visitors who came to join us today with this very interesting webinar. Welcome to the first Kuwait Digital Transformation Webinar 2020, organized jointly by Kuwait College of Science and Technology, KCST, and Huawei. We are very, very honored to have a great group of high-level speakers who today will give us insight into very important topic that we deal with. My name is Khalid Al-Begain. I'm the president of KCST, and I was privileged to be the moderator of this session. Digital transformation is a key topic. It has been on the agenda of number of countries, organizations, and of course, Kuwait has been always on the forefront of this. We know a lot about plans, strategic plans that wanted to bring Kuwait to the leading role in digital transformation. And of course, we all know that this year, that with COVID-19 pandemic, this has become not only a plan, it has become a necessity. No country, no organization in the world can avoid moving into this digital era. Today, we will be listening to our speakers who will give us insight into what is going on internationally, in the Gulf region, as well as in Kuwait. And our webinar is split or organized into 3 different parts. In the first part, we will look into trends, insights given by leading consultancy experts from the field who will give us the numbers, the data on which we can consider and look into what is going on, as I said, in Kuwait and in the region and everywhere. In the second part, we will listen to important organizations represented by key people who drive the transformation in Kuwait, as well as internationally. We speak to government representatives who know what's going on, and they drive the change that we are looking for Kuwait. In the third part, we will listen to a case study by a leading expert from the company Huawei, who will give us what others have done, how far they have gone. At the end of the presentations, we will have a chance to have a kind of question and answer session where we will listen to all speakers. We ask them questions and hopefully we give us insightful answers, as well as we will have give a chance to the audience to give their questions as much the time allows in the form of messages on the chat, and hopefully we will have time to answer these questions. So without any further ado, I would like to immediately ask our first speaker, Mr. Wilson Javier, the Director of Research and ICT Services in the consultancy firm IDC, to give us his insight into the market outlook and the digital transformation from IDC perspective. Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Khalid. It's my pleasure to join you all and hopefully have an interesting session with everyone. So as we start, just want to touch upon the area we're going to cover. So we're going to cover today as a broader topic and IDC's ICT market outlook and digital transformation. So with that, I would like to touch upon some of the key areas, and let me just jump on. So the key areas I would like to cover today is around macroeconomic outlook. This is just to get the context for everyone to be on the same page. And then we'll go into IT market overview, wherein we go deep dive into the IT spectrum in Kuwait and also in the GCC. And then we'll go into the CIO perspective, which is critical because we get to see the voice of the customers, voice of CIOs in the region in Kuwait as well. And then as we all think through our recovery phase or frame of mind, I want to give a sense of the role of technology in that curve and how we can all prepare for, and some of the essential guidance from IDC perspective. So let me give a context here. right? I mean, COVID, as we all know, has come in at a certain time, has impacted, as you all know, it's a health crisis. But what has really happened is a health crisis has led to a damping of demand, a demand for services and products. And that essentially impacted all sectors of the economy, whether it's government, private sector, small or medium sector. So if you follow me to the right on the top box, we're talking about economic realities. Now, the realities could be in the form of uncertainty over recovery. It could be an oil and commodity prices, which is impacted, and it's very important for our region in GCC and Kuwait as well. Then obviously there is uncertainty around vaccine availability. And as we speak, there is a clear challenge around collapse of the real economy, and whether it's enterprise, SME, and others. And obviously, governments are trying to do the right balancing and also trying to look at the challenges around employment per se. Now, if you come follow me to the bottom box, right, these are some of the balancing act or fiscal balancing act, you want to call it, what the governments are trying to do. And that's the same across GCC, that's the same in Kuwait as well. And what you actually see is they're trying to look at the revenue models, whether there's an increase in VAT or cut in expenditures or tap into fiscal reserves, or looking into bonds and others to tide over the period to prepare for the future. Now, if you move along with me to the left to the chart of real GDP, that's an interesting perspective, right? If you can notice in 2020, outside of China, most of all the key regions of the world, including Middle East and Africa, we were part of, essentially has a contraction in real GDP, close to 4 to 5%. But what's also important is the fact that Middle East and Africa has the lowest contraction compared to the rest of the region. Now, what I would like to really give focus on, and as a message for all of us today, is the fact that how does 21 and 22 look like? And 21 and 22 is essentially an upside curve and gives a very positive, optimistic outlook. So while we have a challenge, while governments and the industry as a whole is preparing and navigating through this uncertain time, there's obviously a very positive, optimistic 21 and 22 and forward looking. So that's a context I just want to set for today as we move on to the next slide, right? Now, let's kind of have a quicker view of IT category spend and give us a sense of the IT-driven economy and IT-driven spend in Kuwait and also GCC. So if you look in the left, that's sort of IT view of Kuwait, and on the right is the GCC view for comparative purposes. Now, there are 4 categories of IT categories I've kind of highlighted today just to give a context. So there's some devices piece, there's an enterprise infra, which has network infra storage, there's a software and services piece. Now, across all the 4 categories, as you can notice, in 2020, there is a contraction. Not as high as GDP, but relatively lower contraction. The devices has a significantly larger contraction of negative 70.5%. However, the positive outlook for 2021 is that all those categories are forward looking and is going to grow for 2021 and 2022 between 2 and up to 5% as we speak. Right, so that's a very positive outlook for IT category spend that is really showing up in the real economy per se. In fact, the devices spend is also going to grow positively as we get into 21 and 22. Now, if you look at the GCC spend, the numbers are very much in sync with what was represented in Kuwait as well, with a degree of variance. So again, that gives a context in terms of what are we going through, how are we looking forward positively for next year. But the key message I would like to highlight in this slide is essentially to say that enterprise IT, even in 2020, is relatively better placed. And more importantly, the recovery of enterprise IT will be led by enterprise IT when it comes to recovery. And some of the key areas of infra, software, services will be an areas of spend moving forward too. So I think I kind of got a setting for all of you from an economic and IT category. Now, what I want to try and, the next couple of slides, I want to touch upon is what is the voice of the customer? What's the voice of the CIOs, the IT leaders of our region, both in Kuwait and the rest of GCC? And it's very important for us to get into their frame of mind. So if you follow me to the left, right, I'll share some quick highlights for you all to pick it up. Now, if you add up the numbers on the left of 20%, 42%, and 23%, that's roughly 85%. Now, that's a significant number. What I'm trying to highlight here is that when it comes to technology leaders in the region and in Kuwait, as IDC, we do a lot of surveys and researches with all of them. What they speak about is the fact that 85% of CIOs in GCC and in Kuwait is essentially going to continue their technology priorities as such, even with COVID impact. just a 15% is going to delay any projects for next year. So that's a very positive momentum even during the challenges. The second is the fact that the top two, which is 20 and 42%, 62% of all those CIOs even are trying to continue their new initiatives of technology for 2020. So again, that gives a sense of the prioritization and focus of technology projects from CIOs in the region and in Kuwait. Now, if you follow me to the right, there are a couple of graphs. What I would like to take away is the fact that the red bars essentially represent, what the CIOs are planning to spend more with the COVID impact versus the golden bars, which essentially was what they planned for. And the gray ones, essentially what they're going to spend less, so to speak. So if you focus on the red bars, you see that the bunch of technologies from our surveys in the CIOs in Kuwait and the region talks the fact that these are the technologies they're going to spend more, right? And that's a clear indication of two major shifts from this slide. One is infra modernization of IT and a cloud shift. The second, if you go down, is a focus around app modernization and automation. So there's a very clear focus of preparing a digital infrastructure in the form of cloud shift, but more importantly, it's also modernizing and automation to bring in efficiency in the whole model, both internal for external. So that's a key message, perhaps, if you would like to take away from this slide. The second is a higher level message, which I would also, as a result of the surveys we do with the CIOs. So we track digital transformation on a regular basis with CIOs in the region across the world as well. And the research we did during the COVID times, just to see, has there been an impact? Has there been a change? Now, the message from the survey, what the CIOs in the region and Kuwait speaks is that most of them are continuing the DX. In fact, 58% is going to accelerate existing DX or digital transformation initiatives. And in fact, some 25% is actually going to create new initiatives to support or navigate the crisis and also prepare for the future. And essentially, just 20% is slowing down or focusing on. So again, gives a sense of the momentum of priority and DX initiatives of CIOs in Kuwait and in the region. So that's a sort of context from DX and technology. Now, this is very interesting, perhaps, for all of you, given the fact that with COVID, all of us expected, or suddenly are faced with a new reality, working from home, working from anywhere. Now, from an IDC perspective globally, essentially, this is not a new per se, but it falls into the context what we define as future work. Essentially, has three components in that framework of reference, which is culture, force, and space. What we define as culture is how engaged the employees are digitally enabled to work in the new environment. The force is about how humans and technology collaborate, so to speak, working with robots, working with AI, and so on. And in space is working from anywhere, independent of place and time, to contribute to that model. Now, there are a lot of underlying technology that fires it up. And you actually can see a lot of these technologies on the right, which we did from the survey in the region during COVID. And what we found was the CIOs are going to prioritize these set of technologies in the next 12 to 18 months to essentially support what we call as future work trends or remote working model with the rest of the components. And we believe from IDC, it's going to accelerate the DX even more. So I think the couple of these slides will give you a sense of the technology and DX transactions and momentum. Now, I wanted to kind of give a little different context from organization point of view. Now, that could be government sector, it could be a regulation sector, it could be any of the vertical sectors from banks and oil and gas and others. The idea is, with this change, what we believe is the fact that, there's two sorts of view that comes in. There's an inside-out view where organizations are focusing around productivity, security and compliance, cross-silo integration, personalization, and omni-channel or omnipresence. As a result of COVID, more importantly, a digital embracement for the future. Now, from a customer perspective, which is an outside-in view, what they expect is a value-driven, transparent, seamless, equitable, and online or anytime model in terms of the services of product delivery. Now, what is that leading to is an efficient, trusted, or highly responsive or inclusive model that serves as an ethic framework for internally from an organization for their efficiency and serviceability, and from a customer perspective, how they could consume and prepare for the next generation, so to speak, of services. Now, with that, I just want to jump on to the sort of, the technology recovery piece, which we touched upon, while the governments are trying to focus on health and economic revival, sometimes it's good to have a longer term perspective or a medium term perspective of how we want to look into, which is, we all are faced with business continuity and ROI focus as businesses and governments when COVID and economic slowdown hit us, right? But what we're going through is a phase, and what we're going to go through is a phase of business resiliency, of recessionary phase, and how we kind of flattened that out, and moving into targeted investments and digital revenue as economy move into return path or return to grow and recovery path. So what we have done is globally with 50 governments, we have done a sentiment survey to see where those countries are. And this essentially represents where those countries are in this wave of journey and how we can look forward for the future. So, and obviously we can go to the details of this, but what we believe in GCC and Kuwait, we're somewhere in between economic slowdown and a recessionary phase, and potentially helping us to prepare for the future of growth and recovery for digital revenue. So, and I just want to touch upon a couple of examples, right? Just to make it live, right? So as digital transformation move into the phase of recovery, what we define as a smart recovery phase. The smart recovery phase is, it's not the way the organizations that governments or regulators and industries or SMEs function. There's a net new way of functioning. And I've picked a couple of examples just to make it live for all of you, is that if you look at government, for example, change, citizenship experience changing, online channels, operational efficiency, agility and resilience coming in. Similarly in health, right? Remote health, digital channel. Look at education, and I'm sure Dr. Khalid will have a lot more to speak about this, right? From physical to blended to digital models and remote deliveries, and oil, right? With the pressure on oil prices, there's far more focus on digital oil, digital upstream, IoT based, automation. So there's a lot of those digital components coming in. And we've seen all this, right, during COVID times. Banks responded for, improvement in credit lending in a focus sector. We saw the initiative from CAS coming in for digital skilling of employees and students. We've seen the effort of telecoms in Kuwait, essentially extending network connectivity between healthcare and some of those, hospital networks. So there's a lot of those things and momentum, came in as an example. Now, with that, I just want to give some final closing comments of essential guidance, what we define in IDC, and probably under 4 pillars. One is a vision and strategy. What we believe is it's critical as national, sectorial, and technology level digital policy and regulation is critical to drive digital transformation. One, to create critical mass and drive. Second, to lead the momentum. Second, when it comes to DX, it's very clear that as we see in the curve, to have a longer term approach, prioritize budgets to build the digital edge. When it comes to agility and resilience, Cloud First is a considerable approach to consider for scalability, business agility, clearly to create a differentiator. And more importantly, data and intelligence as we evolve a futuristic organization to prepare for the digital business. So with that, I would like to just close on my session for the time. And I really want to thank your time. And over to you, Dr. Khalid. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Thank you. Very insightful. Actually, the best that in this doom and gloom period, we can hear from your data some positive outlook and something promising that hopefully recovery will be soon and sooner. And probably for ICT sector, this will be a golden opportunity to grow as you showed us in your numbers. Thank you very much. We will have questions to you at the end of the webinar, so please stay with us. And you allow me to move to another very interesting study done by Roland Berger, Middle East, will be presented to us by Mr. Aaron Pai, who's the project manager, talking about post-COVID-19 opportunities in the Middle East.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Arun Pai, and I'm a project manager with Roland Berger based in Dubai. Very excited to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. So as Professor Khalid mentioned, I'm here to present our paper. So we had undertaken a study with Huawei a couple of months ago in June and July to understand the impact that COVID has had on the region and what could be the potential opportunities in the Middle East, ICT related opportunities. To introduce the objective of the study, it was to understand, of course, the impact on economies, consumers, and enterprises, with a specific focus on the ICT industry. We spoke to a number of key stakeholders across the region, telcos and other enterprises. And what came out of that was that there is a strong expectation of new emerging ICT use cases or ones getting accelerated. And as part of that, telcos would have a key role to play as a potential revenue diversification opportunity. But also telcos are looking to accelerate some of their CapEx spend to accommodate for the additional data demand coming through. Organizations are also looking to evolve their operating model following consumers and eyeballs online. And they will also, enterprises will have a role to play in supporting these new ICT emerging use cases. Finally, we also looked at the role that governments have to play in leading their countries out of this crisis, out of this economic crisis brought upon by the pandemic. And they will have a particularly strong role to play, especially by recognizing the economic enablement characteristics of the ICT industry. So if I were to summarize, firstly, the findings of the study. So COVID-19, of course, has triggered a sudden behavioral change, but one that we expect to be permanent. It is more of a seismic shift to work, learn, shop from anywhere, impacting all aspects of our lives. We see that now with IP traffic stabilizing at about 30% higher than pre-COVID levels, further validating the permanent nature of the shift. On the new ICT use cases, which will come up as consumers increasingly move online and remain online, we would expect some of the customer-facing sectors, B2C oriented sectors, to be impacted the first. Ones like healthcare and education, we are already seeing having moved online, but as well as retail, fintech, and so on. But that should then percolate through the rest of the industries as well, giving rise to new digital-driven use cases. Telcos and enterprises definitely will have a role to play. Telcos, firstly, to support these new use cases via connectivity, but also treat these as a revenue diversification opportunity, something that telcos were not fully able to do about a decade ago during the OTT wave. So this could be another opportunity for them to move into adjacencies. And on enterprises, of course, they will have a role to play by reinvesting in optimizing their operating models and driving these use cases forward, essentially. So that would mean increasing their IT capex, for example. And then moving to governments, they will have a strong leadership role to enable the ICT sector. All of this should move the wheel, as you can see, and drive economic growth. However, governments, as I mentioned, would have an even major role by supporting the ICT industry. That is how that is how they can plan for much stronger growth going forward. For example, by creating an environment which is conducive for investment by telcos and by enterprises. So that would be key. Let's look at each of these quickly. Consumers, as I mentioned, traffic is stabilizing. We see digital expenditure by consumers increasing quite significantly in 2020. Bear in mind, this is in the backdrop of a GDP decline of 3 to 5% at least in the region, and budget cuts, and still consumer expenditure increasing digitally. As part of the study, we also looked at the new use cases that are expected to emerge, and as you can see, it's all around us, surrounding all areas of work and play. To quantify this, we'll not go through each of these in the interest of time, but to quantify this, we looked at 5 prioritized use cases. remote consultation, remote healthcare, safety sanitation, automated mining, and e-learning. And what we found was that these 5 combined will present an opportunity of $5 billion by 2024 in the GCC market. That is very significant. And this would be spread across the value chain of each of these use cases, with the revenue pools across connectivity, customer acquisition, data analytics, fintech, which would be an area that telcos are already operating in. So out of the $5 billion, telcos could potentially address about $1.8 billion. So significant revenue diversification opportunity for telcos. And bear in mind, these are only 5 out of several use cases that we could see emerge or get accelerated by COVID. On the telco front, we would expect CapEx to get accelerated, specifically 5G and fiber-related CapEx. We saw in 4G, telcos have already built in significant redundancy, additional capacity into their networks, and hence we haven't seen too many network outages in our region. And telcos would be looking to do that in 5G as well, and hence accelerate some of that spend, at least cover all the urban and suburban areas by 2020, 2021. And then it could reduce and stabilize a little bit the capex as a percentage of revenue spend, driven in the later years by additional 5G infill sites or fiber rollout, which typically takes more time because of right-of-way requirements and digging, trenching, laying, etc. It's more of a physical activity than mobile network rollouts. So we would see that going forward. On the enterprise IT spend also, we expect spend to increase from $16.6 billion in the GCC plus Jordan and Pakistan region to about $20 billion by 2024, a CAGR of 4%. And this is a step up from a CAGR of 2%, which were the pre-COVID estimates. You can see the strong impact of digitalization sort of flowing through because of COVID. Interestingly, there would be still further headroom for growth as far as enterprise IT spend as a percentage of GDP is concerned. The global average is about 1.7% per year. Some of the more advanced countries, US and Korea, are in excess of 2%. Whereas even with these growth estimates, countries in our region would be reaching in the range of about 1%, with UAE being the highest at 1.3%. So it could be further headroom for growth. Breaking this down quickly at a sectoral level, for the top 3 countries by economy size in the region, Saudi, UAE, and Kuwait, you see the sectors on top, which are healthcare, retail, education, media and communications, financial services, expected to grow faster over this period as compared to the other larger sectors, oil and gas, governments, and public sector, and others like construction, infrastructure, etc., which will also grow, but the healthcare, retail, etc., will grow at about 2 to 3x what they were expected to grow at a pre-COVID estimate level. So very strong growth estimates there in customer-facing and B2C sectors. And then finally, the role of the government sitting at the top of the pyramid, providing the national leadership. Broadband is increasingly being viewed globally as almost as a human right, and governments have the responsibility to bridge that digital divide, support higher productivity, and to enable. A key would be to enable the ICT sector. Investments in telecom infrastructure generally, we all know, have a multiplying factor. And we estimate for 5G that would be about 6 to 8% of a positive impact on the economies in the region, which could then support the other enterprises and allow them to provide services in a digital manner to consumers who can then benefit from these services remotely, safely, conveniently in a post-COVID environment. Lastly, a few initiatives that governments could take to give full credit to some of the governments and regulators in our region. Some of these activities they've already done. Like for example, for telcos, there has been temporary awarding of spectrum, but that could be potentially changed to a permanent nature going forward, so that additional capex could be freed by telcos from 4G capex to move it to 5G, so that to quicken the rollout of 5G networks. Similarly, reducing the telco fees, even if temporary, would release additional capex. Operational efficiencies, including faster approval of processes, customs processes, especially as most of the equipment is imported and not manufactured in the region, would increase efficiency as well. That's for the telco industry. And ICT broadly, the broad ICT sector, supporting SMEs, supporting startups through startup incubators, providing them guidance, handholding, digitization, subsidies and programs would be very helpful. And solving a long-standing problem of the region on talent retention and development, to attract experienced talent, set up these new ICT use cases and drive these use cases would be helpful as well for the region, for the growth of the digital ecosystem in the region. So those are some of the initiatives that we highlighted as part of the study that governments could do as well. With that, that is the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pai, for the insightful presentation. And in your presentation, you mentioned key aspects here we look at, which are the role of the regulators and the role of the government. With this, of course, have given us the platform to ask our next speaker, Mr. Walid Al-Ghallaf, who is executive board member of CITRA, the body responsible for regulating ICT in Kuwait. And I don't think that we can have a better person to tell us about what is Kuwait doing in this area. So, Mr. Thank you much for joining us. Please give us your talk.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning to everybody. Thank you for having me in this interesting webinar. And I thank Wilson and Aaron for the nice information they provided us. Although Wilson was using that red color, I was afraid to see that red color at the beginning, So, we know that COVID-19 is blue. This is what they always put the COVID-19 image as blue. And he used the red one, so that was quite nice. Thank you very much for having me here today with distinguished friends. The COVID-19 is it's quite a shock, as everybody knows. It is a pop-up quiz. Nobody was ready for that. When it comes to telecommunication, we were lucky in this region, in the GCC, that our network, all the mobile network, even the fixed network, the fiber network, was ready for this pandemic. As all of us went into this scenario, we realized that connectivity was such an important issue at the beginning. Governments were, they want everybody to be connected to make sure that, people are still safe, people are safe, people get the government authorities messages, right and quick and promptly. And luckily, our network was really robust. The 3 networks of mobile operators were really robust. And the penetration was so high, even before the pandemic. And that quite helped the government keeping in touch with the clients, with the citizens and people living in Kuwait. So that quite, we were lucky to have that. The 4G penetration was around 170% before the pandemic, and the 5G, we were the first country in the region to introduce and launch 5G. That was in June 19. So by Feb and March, 5G penetration was quite good. 4G penetration was excellent. Every citizen, every person living in Kuwait was connected. That was That was not an issue. What we found out in the beginning is the load. We witnessed a spark on network connectivity. It jumped around 35% with the government forcing people to lock down, and they shut down the economy. Everybody was sitting at home. So we witnessed around 35% increase on the internet connectivity, and that puts a lot of pressure on the network. So we immediately met with the mobile operators to see how to relieve their network. And they demanded some frequency. We gave them temporary frequency on the 1800. We gave them extra spectrum to cater for this spike on the usage, internet usage. And you also gave them international connectivity around 250G free of charge. That was around 50% of total capacity that come into the country at that time. So they entertained some extra capacity and spectrum from CETRA to cater for this increase on usage. And at the same time, they offered 5 GB extra bandwidth free of charge to around 4 million people in Kuwait, to make sure that everybody is connected. Everybody is connected to receive government messages. So that was quite a challenge. And at the same time, we faced some challenges on two major cities in Kuwait where they put under curfew. Having around 500,000 persons, they went into curfews and lockdown for around 3 months. So that quite, that contributed, on high usage on the towers. So that was also a challenge. Alhamdulillah, we managed to ease that and make it, alhamdulillah, we successfully managed to get through all of this. But there were some challenges. Digitization today is not an option. Digitization today is not an option. We know that, government, talking about Kuwait government, we were behind in terms of putting services, government services online. So we were behind. There was some challenges at the beginning, but some real challenges is the food supply chain. At that time, people were used to delivery online, ordering online, but the government and supermarkets were not used to supplying those goods to consumers sitting at home. So it was a big challenge on putting those services online because we were not ready beforehand. Unlike private sector, for example, banking, banks were ready before the pandemic on offering their services online. Consumers were used to, doing some online banking, but the government was behind. So that was a quite lesson to the government is now today is the digitization is not an option, it's not elective. It has to go through a certain process, it has to expedite putting those services online. So that's a quite challenge with the government. And what we are doing in terms of regulation in that aspect is we are working with Kate on putting that strategy and hopefully implementing strategy to convert all services online. So it's not actually the matter of technology, as probably the presenters Aaron and Wilson is putting it. It's not in terms of technology. It is, digitization is beyond regulation in IT. Yes, we need to have high-level vision, as mentioned by Aaron. Yes, we need to have solid infrastructure. We need to have upper infrastructure. We need to have skilled human capacity. We also need to have the right process in place. So it's not only IT, and we definitely need the regulation. But above all of that, we have to look at it from consumer and citizen perspective. It has to be a consumer centric. Now, today, if you go in the street and ask people whether they are entertaining government services online, they would say no. You know, why? Because some major ministries, like Ministry of Interior, services are still not online. So we have to find an enabler, like Ministry of Interior, where we have to put all the services online and making sure that we have a collaborative approach. So collaboration is a mandate today between government sectors. It has to be all collaborated. It's not me too approach. We cannot go on me too approach, like what the government used to do. So that's based on a huge vision, a very high level vision. It has to be put, and making sure that the consumer, the citizen, is in the heart of this vision, making sure that the consumer is getting the right services in the right time. So that's a big challenge. The government has been trying to do this in the past 15, 20 years. I hope it is now the right time, that the government is putting lots of effort and forcing this among government organizations. And now, probably your guest, Dr. Ammar from Kate, can elaborate more what CITRA can do in terms of regulation on this. During the pandemic, we realized that privacy is an issue, with this tracking application, Shronic. So what we did is we introduced this privacy protection bylaw to make sure that the consumer rights the consumer rights are not violated. So that's in terms of regulation. We are working today in cloud first policy that's going to go out hopefully within a month. Cloud first policy will with its regulation on accrediting service providers and others. We are also issuing data classification. So each government has to classify its data and then go online or go on cloud. So that's in terms of regulation. And as I mentioned, we are working with Kate, closely with Kate, on creating this high-level strategy and hopefully implementing. So Kate is the execution arm, the IT execution arm of the government. So CITRA is regulating, putting some regulation in place, bylaws, and Kate is to execute with the government sector. So this is, in a nutshell, what we are doing today in terms of digitizing government services and putting them online.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ali. Thank you very much. Very, very insightful. And I can just confirm that with your effort regarding connectivity, you have taken away one of the usual excuses of our students that they cannot connect through. I can confirm that probably this was the least time anyone complained about connectivity in Kuwait. So your efforts are visible, and I'm sure that you have a lot to do. You mentioned our next speaker, because I know you spoke about collaboration, and we all believe that collaboration is the only way for progress in Kuwait, and collaboration among government units, entities. But I believe also this has to go beyond that to include even the private sector as well as the education sector. We are all in it for Kuwait, I hope. And with this, immediately, I introduce someone who I know in the heart of all this effort. Your he will tell us about things that we witnessed ourselves throughout the pandemic with visible outcome to the effort. Dr. Ammar Al-Husseini is the Deputy General Director of the Central Agency for Information Technology in Kuwait. So, Dr. Ammar, we would love to listen to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Khalid. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you here in this panel. I'll try to make it quick and focus to the government after what my friend Walid, he just mentioned. And like digital transformation is very important. Is the government serious about digital transformation? Yes, it is serious. It's not easy as we are talking about digital transformation, but just to highlight, like the current government, the working program and mandate of the current government has 3 parts. Second one is digital transformation of government services. So the government is serious about digital transformation. But as we talk, digital transformation is not easy to be implemented quickly. It's a journey, not projects. So I think the main challenge for the government initially is to clarify what they mean about digital transformation. So it's a buzzword, everybody is using digital transformation, but I think we need to clarify clearly for all government entities what we are like focusing about digital transformation. What is digital transformation for the government? So basically, as my colleague mentioned in previous talks, that digital transformation is not about IT. Digital transformation is to creatively reinvent the business model and the processes and use technology to provide the services to the consumer or citizen. As a government, the digital transformation should be citizen-centric. So the core of digital transformation is the business processes and re-engineering and reinventing the business processes. And the tools, enablers of digital transformation is technology and data. And the goal is the citizen. So it's not about technology. So we have to understand this. Digital transformation is exploiting technology and data to provide a better business model. So this is a real challenge for the government. Following the regular bureaucratic procedures will not help digital transformation at all. It's the biggest challenge actually that digital transformation is facing. So it's not about having some fancy projects and applications and platforms. This is not digital transformation. Digital transformation is a journey. So therefore, digital transformation should be very important part within the government to the higher level and should be part of the mission of the government and should be like supported by all leaders. So this is very important things to start with. And back to the government, and like digital transformation has 3 main elements. Government need to take care of the 3 elements in order to have a successful digital transformation. Business, processes, people, and technology. So as for the business processes, government need to seriously look at all the procedures and like processes within the government and look at them and re-engineer, simplify this processes in support with changing some laws and like regulation. This is very important. Without this very important step, digital transformation will not be very successful. And this is a very challenging, by the way, in the government. It's not as easy as like in the private sector. The second element is the human resources. And like this is another challenge that government facing, that for a successful digital transformation, we need the right skills. Building skills within the government is a big challenge. Why? Just frankly speaking, we can spend money to like build capacities, but once we building this employee skills, he will just go out for the private sector. He will go to other places where they more appreciate the IT skills. And this is a real challenge within the government. Building the skill and maintaining those skills is very important. The third element is the IT and the data. And this is like the part where IT is important in digital transformation, having, as Mr. Walid said, the right infrastructure. And I would like to add more, is not only about the infrastructure. Actually, the main challenge in government is operating the infrastructure and maintaining the infrastructure. As a government, we are spending quite a lot of money on infrastructure. But are we like operating this infrastructure and systems we have to the level that making the services we provide to the citizen, like making the citizen happy? No, I doubt. And as Walid said, if you go out and ask any citizen, are you happy with the government digital services? He may say, what's digital services? Still, maybe we have hundreds of digital services and e-services, but still the citizen is not seeing the significance of these services. Government need to like spend more and invest more in digital transformation, because basically it will help endorse transparency, fight corruption, the main goal of current government. Also, digital transformation will strengthen the trust of citizens with the government services, because we are using measurement tools. We are providing user experience, a good user experience. As I said, it's all about citizen, it's citizen centric. So, and also the competence and effectiveness of government entities will be more and more effective with the digital transformation, because we will use the measurement tool. So it's very important for the government to invest more in the digital transformation. And actually, just before like I ended my points, like what's the main challenging we are facing in the government? And I can summarize the main challenges as first one is resistant to change. Like when you work in the government and everybody is like being used to work in specific procedure, and sometimes even like we are following some procedure, you don't know who put those procedure or why we are doing this. Nobody even bother to questioning the procedure. So accepting the change is not easy. I like even like we all of us maybe live this in for small project, and like accepting changes within entity is not easy. So how it's about the whole government. So this is a real challenge. Also, lack of collaboration and working as silos and separate island is a main challenge within government. We have many electronic services coming out from government entities, but the citizen is not seeing those services as integrated. And actually for digital transformation, we need to act as, the government need to act as one virtual entity where the citizen talk to one entity. The citizen not need to be a messenger moving from one entity to another, just trying to finish one service. He need to be, get very easily. Therefore, the main product we are working on now with our colleague and other entities is the unified mobile app for government services. Inshallah will be launched before the end of this year. It's a one-stop shop for the citizen and residents, where like anything you want to contact the government, it will be within this app. The name of the app is Sahel, and inshallah will be Sahel and give a very nice user experience. And actually the idea of the app is it's simple. It's like as a resident and citizen, you like download this app, log in with Hawiyati, the national ID, digital ID, and then all government entity, if there is any communication or like notification or any service with all government entity, you will see in your mobile. So challenges, resistant to change, lack of collaboration. The third challenge we are facing is skill gap. As I said, for digital transformation, we need new skills. You need skills for the future. You need skills, it's not only on the IT side, you need skills on the business side. You need skills about how to create citizen journeys. It's not about individual services. Those skills is not being on the focus for last few years. This is what we need to focus about. And just keep in mind, building skills is not solving the problem, because we need to maintain our resources and give the right incentives to have those resources. So a last challenge is the bureaucratic processes. Still we are a government. Government is example of bureaucracy. Unfortunately, that's in all countries. Changing the processes is not easy. Many entities involved. There are more regulation, and this is the main challenge. Finally, I'd like to summarize my talk about what's the roadmap we are taking toward like a successful digital transformation within government. First of all, we are working on a national digital transformation strategy, as Mr. Walid said. This is with CITRA and our other colleague. This is very important. The strategy, yes, we have great projects ongoing, but still we need a clear strategy to follow, and we need to make sure that this strategy will be executed in the right way. Second thing in our roadmap is creating the culture. Culture is very important. Strategy is important, but culture and train everybody about and enforce the culture of digital transformation, accepting the change is very important. And as Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Having a strategy without culture, it's not helpful at all. Also, we need, and we are working on having the continuous executive leadership, involvement, and ownership. For digital transformation, we need ownership at the higher level. And currently, I can clearly see the support of His Highness the Prime Minister, and this is a great opportunity, and we are using this and utilizing this. Also, a government need to have the right structure to supervise the digital transformation journey. We need to write the right ecosystem. We have main player involved in the digital transformation journey. Kate, CITRA, PASI, but still, we don't have, as other neighbors, an entity supervise the digital transformation strategy, as in Saudi Arabia or UAE or Bahrain. They have units, national-wide units for digital transformation. This is something very important. Last point, IT infrastructure and operation is very important. We need to use the right tools, right technologies. Digital transformation is not about using the best technologies. It's not about there are fancy words, everybody talking about blockchain, for example, then let's use blockchain. It's not about this. We need to use the right technology at the right time, at the right place. So this is in short, digital transformation within the government. It's a real challenge. It's not easy, but we are seeing a nice result currently. Even the government just formed last January, and it's soon to be reformatted. It's only 1 year old, but hopefully, inshallah, we'll see more result with this new approach. And we are focusing on collaboration. We have a main project, so inshallah, we'll see result within the government and hopefully soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ammar. Thank you for the insightful. And as you correctly said, it's not an event, it's a process, and the process that probably will take years to accomplish. But I am very pleased to hear that this process has started within the government in Kuwait, with the leadership of the government and the entities who are playing the key role in this. Very promising, and we hope that we all citizens and residents of Kuwait will see the results of those soon. You mentioned infrastructure. Yes, infrastructure is not the only factor of digital transformation. We all know that. However, it is the baseline for getting the transformation. So transformation cannot happen without the right infrastructure. And when we speak about infrastructure, I think the right person to speak about this is the CEO of a major, president, I'm sorry, of a major technology supplier and leader in the world, Mr. An Jane, who will give us a talk about Huawei's vision for the digitalization to benefit the society. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Khalid. Dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for having me here. I'm so glad and honored to have this opportunity to share some of Huawei's insight and opinions. I think COVID-19 make all of us realize the digital transformation is not an option, it's a must. And definitely the key is the leadership from the government and the determination from all industry to transform their organization, procedures, and working style. However, I would like to mention that the ICT infrastructure is the cornerstone, the foundation of this digitalization. So looking back to the human history, all the industry revolution is trying to upgrade the productivity to gain more business value. But however, I think for this time, the industry digitalization brings significant value not only for the business level, but also the society level. According to the current industry digital practice, including smart mining, smart education, smart transport, and smart manufacturing, are continuously creating value for society. For example, smart mining can make the production process much smarter. The workers' operations are much safer and more efficient. Smart education enables high quality education resources to be obtained by schools and the students in rural areas, greatly improving the education equity. Smart transportation makes the airport scaling system more efficient. The passengers' traveling experience gets improved. Smart manufacturing improves the productivity and reduces the production costs for all enterprises. So from the technical perspective, the end-to-end ICT infrastructure can support industries with scenario-based digital solutions through cross-domain collaboration, including 5G, artificial intelligence, computing, cloud, and industry applications, and therefore accelerate the industry digitalization. In addition to that, digitalization in various industries has opened up new market space for ICT sector. According to our study and the forecast, the industry digitalization will bring an extra $700 billion in next 10 years for the ICT domain. So the digitalization is a trend in the world and the Middle East region. During the pandemic, the G20 summit held in Saudi in March is the first G20 virtual summit. In Kuwait, the MOE announced the e-learning program since April, which provides a remote education for learning to help the government prevent and control disease spread. Meanwhile, online medical service, e-commerce, and online shopping has become a new normal. Governments, enterprises, medical institutions, and people are gradually adapting to this way and keep social distance and stay safe. So the ICT is the cornerstone for all the digital demands. Through the insights during the pandemic, the telco traffic is shifted from the hotspot area and the business area to the rural and the residential areas. The traffic of the residential areas increased by 60% in UAE, and the overall ICT traffic in Saudi also increased by 25%. With the pursuit of the digital society, more and more people are willing to have better experience products. In Kuwait, we found that the number of the people purchasing operators' 5G products increased by 30% each month. Definitely, the ICT infrastructure plays a very important role in Kuwait's social digitalization against the pandemic. In March, the Ministry of the Health, aligned with the Chinese embassy, have successfully organized several meetings with China CDC with the upgrade and assurance of the carriers' ICT network facilities, so that obtained effective information timely about the epidemic prevention and control. In May, when the country announced the curfew in Ramadan, the Kuwait Bank successfully released the mobile banking services through the carriers' ICT infrastructure. It provided extreme convenient banking services for the citizen who could not leave their home during the Ramadan, helping people keep safe and the government controlling the pandemic, while enhancing their own image of the corporate social responsibility. In June, enterprises in oil and gas industry began to explore the scenarios where the new ICT technology were adopted to monitor the oil wells remotely, reducing the shortage of the manpower for the oil field inspection caused by the pandemic, reducing the necessity of the field work and maintaining the same production efficiency. In August, the MOE launched the e-learning program by upgrading its own ICT infrastructure and utilized the carriers' infrastructure to provide the education resources for all the students from 600 schools at home. So the various digital anti-pandemic practices in Kuwait show that the Kuwait's robust ICT infrastructure makes it possible to rapidly implement the industry digitalization. So the ICT infrastructure consists of the terminal, connectivity, and the cloud, which is shown as the bottom part of this slide. So I will not address more on that. So the mobile banking case just now I mentioned in Kuwait is a very innovative and impressive. So it protects people from the home isolation and provide the convenient service to the people. So let's talk more about it. So during the traditional Ramadan festival, the curfew make people inconvenient to go out and not able to obtain the financial service from the bank branch. The mobile bank branch can directly taken to the residential area, meeting the basic financial service requirement of the residents in that area, allowing them to obtain the banking services without leaving the district, getting rid of the risk being in crowded gathering places, keeping the people's safety, and responding to the government's initiative to keep the social distance. On the mobile banking vehicle, the bank provides the remote video guidance and the service processing, make it more interactive rather than being a cold fish. So totally 16 civil districts were served by the mobile banking services during a period of 12 days for every vehicle. So the utilization of the technology brings the convenience to the society. So in the traditional industry era, the highway transportation, large factory, and the machine operation are the basis for quickly and effectively converting the mineral and energy resources into productivity and commercial monetization. However, in the Industry 4.0 era, the ICT infrastructure, including the high-speed connection, such as like 5G and the fiber network, and the cloud platform, computing power, and AI, is the foundation and the enabler to convert the data as the core resource into the productivity and then monetize the business. Therefore, the ICT infrastructure is the cornerstone of the industry digitalization. In response to the Kuwait's 2035 vision, all industry players shall work together to accelerate the industry digitalization and contribute more social responsibilities and value to Kuwait. So as His Highness Emir said, the Kuwait 2035 vision is committed to make Kuwait as a regional pioneer to be a financial and a trade hub. To achieve this goal, digitalization of the industry and the digital Kuwait are imperative. To realize this long-term vision and digitalization, Huawei is calling for the cooperation among all the industry, develop their capabilities and contribute to the development of Kuwait. So for regulators, they could issue the positive regulatory policies to promote the development of the ICT infrastructure and digital services, reduce the burden of the carriers and enterprise to encourage the digital innovation. For carriers, they could keep building the regional leading ICT infrastructure and have joint innovation teams with the industry, leading corporations to explore more on the digital scenarios. For the industry enterprises, they could utilize the ICT technology and embrace the digital transformation to improve the work efficiency and productivity, proactively explore digital scenarios, accelerate the digitalization process, and contribute more to the society. And for the ICT solution providers and partners, they could keep introducing the up-to-date ICT technology to Kuwait, make the country ahead of the other countries in the region. Additionally, Huawei will continuously carry out the ICT talent program with all partners to cultivate digital talent for the country. So dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let's work tightly together to create a wonderful digital society through ICT as a strategic infrastructure. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jain, for the talk and encouraging and this initiative that we all have seen in Kuwait. Actually, the mobile banking was truly impressive. The ATM moving around. I was one of those who used it, so I know from personal experience. And it's a credit to a lot of other initiatives that have been going as well. In our talk, my colleagues from Huawei asked to cover the part about education. And as such, I will, of course, not introduce myself. I did introduce already myself. And I will use the opportunity just briefly to give another perspective to the argument. Especially, I'm going to speak about universities and education. And we all know that in COVID-19, universities and education in general, school, have suffered significantly. Many organizations have had issue with some of their services being disturbed. However, education has been really one of the worst affected after the health sector. So in this, what I'm going to talk about is that from your university, from my limited area, I'm talking about how universities and education have suffered and how we see first our role and our way for transformation to become more effective. Because we all know that as soon as we suffered, we immediately jumped to adopt online teaching without any preparation for that as such. So if you look at any educational institution, I will look at it as an entity first, and I will look later at its role in the digital transformation. So in a university, as any entity that can apply to school anywhere, we have different levels of digital transformation. We look at internal systems, and usually universities, even schools, many of them are well prepared in this sense. They have the system, they have the right ICT infrastructure within the university to serve its own business and maybe others. Unfortunately, in Kuwait, we noticed because of the pandemic that many schools were not even prepared for that. The schools do not have the internal ICT systems or IT systems to allow them to move into a more flexible operation. Another component is the system that allow interaction with students and potential students. So universities in general are good at this. All universities have their internal student portals for registration interaction. In Kuwait, we discovered that there is a shock to most of the universities regarding the application admission portals systems. Kuwait has a unique situation of geographically very well connected small area. In other places in the region like Saudi Arabia or the UAE, because of the geographical distribution, all universities or even schools had online admission system or application system already, because people do not go to the university necessarily. In Kuwait, many universities ignored that aspect because students tend to travel for 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes maximum to reach the place they want to apply to, and they apply physically. So that was a challenge, immediate challenge. And for this, we ourselves have decided not to take a small step, but to work together with a government organization like PASI to create an application system that integrates to Hawiyati, so that to make the system more effective, a student with QR code can immediately upload all information needed to apply. However, the most challenging part of the process is what we call the teaching and learning process. In this, of course, we know all about what happened in Kuwait. All schools, all universities went online. So there is 3 levels of that. Level 1 is about technology adoption. And that was very successful, to be honest. There was high success. There are plenty of platforms, video platforms, Zoom that we are using now, MS Teams, WebEx, Google Suite, and a lot of universities and schools adopted those, and they seem to be working fine. Universities usually have virtual learning environments like Moodle, Blackboard, or others, So that was an easy part as well. Some universities had the digital libraries like ourselves. So basically access to books, journals, resources was not affected mainly. The second component, which is the teaching part, and the teaching part regarding the adaptation of the teaching and learning material. With this, it was, to be honest, a medium success. Most of the universities, they just did teaching of where they used to teach in person just through video. That's not correct. This is not right. And in this matter, there was a very limited success. COVID-19 came as a sudden, as we know, so really there was no time to adapt. We should have been prepared before, but obviously no one was. The worst part of it, and I usually split the two components as teaching and learning. The teaching, the first two parts cover the teaching. So from teaching perspective, we were able to deliver the material to the students, and we taught them what they need to be taught. However, have they learned? Have they gained the skills that should have been given to them through this teaching? And in this aspect, I believe there was low success overall across the board. And it's not about the technology, and I just echo what my colleagues have said before. Technology is there. However, the human factor and the social factor that Dr. Ammar hinted to and Mr. Walid also hinted to, the human factor was a very challenging component, because in education, there's nothing can replace the interactive student stuff or peer interaction between learners themselves, which is equally important to the learning process. There are some important disciplines in education that need labs, practical skills. These were challenging. The assessment was the biggest challenge. How can you ensure the integrity and reliability of the assessment to ensure that the learners have learned? And there's a psychological and social impact. We learned about a lot of students who started to get depression from being at home, studying at home, facing a lot of issues. And of course, in education, the extracurricular activities and students' club are very important. I'm saying all these, and I'm really happy to hear say that one of the least things students complained about is connectivity. In a survey we did, we found that connectivity, yes, there were some complaints, but it's not a main factor in the lowering the quality of education. So going forward, as I'm saying, the future of education in the world of digitally transformed world, I can see it as rather than being online and distance learning, we would love to see it as being held in probably similar way to the traditional, however, with hybrid and blended delivery of teaching. So the digital technology now, rather than teaching people at home, teaching them in universities, but allowing for them speakers like yourselves to be able to give lectures to our students without leaving your office. So that we transform the education to smart education, as Mr. Jain said, that by creating the campuses to be able to bring the work to the classroom rather than sending the students at home. So it is about embedding high technology into the teaching and learning and upskilling the learners. So that when Kate or Citra needs the right skills, they come already with a skill, and they don't have to spend the extra money on those to be skilled while at work. Of course, at work, upskilling is always needed, but you need the raw material to be right. And that's why our students have to learn the right skills, the practical skills, and I'm not only talking about digital, but overall skills that they get them. And I believe we all echoed the same sentiment about collaboration. and partnership between the different entities. The government working together, but working with universities as working with industry. In the world, this is by default. In many countries, this is happening. In Kuwait, it's still lagging behind. And our hope is that seminars like this or webinars like this will contribute to bring the key people together. And maybe together we can create the right skill sets that need to be earned by the student at university, so that we get, I say, raw material rather than ready-made graduates, but graduates who can fit in every sector, because they're having the right basic skills that can be adapted to the area. So because I'm the moderator, I limited myself to less time so that we can keep the overall time of the session. So thank you for this. And from educational background, I hope that I covered some part of it. However, we will have the chance again to speak about education from other perspective, from your perspective, because this is very important for us. So with this, we move to a very interesting presentation. Will be given by Mr. Joe So, who again from Hawaii, as Chief Digital Transformation Officer, who will give us some case studies, real case studies about digital transformation. So, platform is yours, Mr. So.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon or good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joe. 15 years in Huawei and now I'm currently holding a position as a Chief Digital Transformation Officer. Today, my topic I'm going to talk about is the government digital transformation during the COVID-19. Now, if you look at the picture here, every city is facing different pains during COVID. As for China, with 1.3 billion people during the Chinese New Year, where everyone was traveling heavily back home, going back and forth, the floating population makes things very hard to control, especially when they have a lack of understanding of the virus, and that makes it worse. Now, the second case is I was actually in Japan in February for vacation for Chinese New Year. However, when I was there, people were not aware there was a virus, there was a COVID-19, or they're not even aware, or they're not prepared for it. Because of the dense population in Japan, and the space and the rooms are very small in the restaurant and home. At the same time, home office were not accepted traditionally. So virus was out of control. And even today, Japan is still being affected by the COVID. The third case is in Hong Kong, as they have experienced the SARS already in 2003. Things were under control during the first wave and the second wave. However, because of the dense population and loopholes in the control of entrance of people to Hong Kong, the third wave just hit them. They're still inside the third wave, and they're actually going to the end of it, okay? Now, if you look at this pandemic, okay, this pandemic has changed our life drastically. It has affected the way we work, we live, and we interact. Although it has brought a lot of devastation into many countries, however, it is also a catalyst. I want to make the catalyst that speeds up the process of digital transformation for many countries. Let me give you a few examples right here. Because of COVID-19, government have offered more online services to serve the citizens so that they don't have to line up and take the risk of being infected. The movement of citizens and infected patients are being traced and monitored by the new technology like AI, big data, cloud computing, etc. The business communities also build digital transformation to support home office. Okay, I was working at home for a while, webinar like what we have today, smart payment, digital marketing, digital management, and even online financing. Now, citizens being locked down at home are also encouraged, okay, to use more digital services such as ordering foods, ordering groceries, and games, and real-time soccer and music concert online, right? Healthcare is also introduced many technology using video, robot, AI to serve patients safely and more effectively as a whole. Now, I want to share the case in China. In China, government decided to use AI and big data and 5G technology to enable the management of citizens, travelers, and visitors in and out of the city. Now, we hold a healthcare code, okay, which is a QR code that is used to distinguish if you're a healthy person or not. If your mobile phone indicated that you're red, you have the red QR code, that means that you should be locked down and confined to the hospital. If your QR code is yellow, that means that you need to be quarantined and you should not walking out on the street. The green means that you are free to go everywhere, okay? And in general, government during the COVID has brought into 3 values, okay? I believe 3 typical values into the society. The first value, I believe, that is a social value, okay? Which makes awareness of the virus, political value to demonstrate government cares about the citizen, including the old age citizens. Economic value is just a reflection of a success in the recovery of the productivity in the societies. Now, in the digital transformation for business, government has providing support for business migrating to cloud computing by purchasing a collaborative cloud technology solution that enable home office, online services, e-commerce, and as a result, digital business model has brought into the system, like the digital payment, digital currency, digital online system. Everything's becoming digital. Okay, and it's also driven not only by the government, it's also driven by large corporations like Taobao and also Tencent, okay, which is giving the facility, giving the infrastructure to facilitate all these to happen. Now, I want to share Hong Kong, right? Now, in Hong Kong is a little bit different. Based on the SARS experience in 2003, Hong Kong government restricted entrance to Hong Kong unless that you are the residents. So all persons from outside must be quarantined for 14 days if you are the citizen. If you're not citizen, you're not allowed to stay anyway. And then 14 days before they are free. They use the RFID and GPS application on the mobile to keep track of the quarantine person to make sure that they're at the right place. Now, they have used a COVID camp, okay, which is the large camp that can host thousands of people inside the not a hospital, but a camp for infected personnel. Now, both mask and social distance is mandatory, okay, with heavy fines. So if you're not able to do this, it costs you like $300 or $400 US. Now, in terms of digital transformation, Hong Kong is a little bit different. Hong Kong is a late player, okay? Although the financial support have been used to support many businesses, they are still expecting 10 to 20% of the business will not be able to survive. Now, the COVID-19 has encouraged people to use more service online. I actually attended a lot of services, a lot of entertainment, a lot of online services, and KOL and also digital marketing has become the upcoming trend for many businesses. So it has been grown. They have a growth tremendously. One of the friends that who is actually listed in the stock exchange and in Hong Kong, and they told me the digital marketing business has grown from more than 40 to 50%. Now, that's my last page because of the time. I want to make it short, right? I think that building platform and ecosystem to digitalize all aspects of operation to give the business capabilities of providing better visibility, more accurate predictions, how to enhance the operation efficiency, and most importantly, enable the business decision maker to make the right decision at the right place at the right time. Including the 3 values. I said 2 values right here, but I think there's actually 3 values: economic values, social value, and also the political values, right? Now, use technology to enable intelligent function by using the ICT in the area like healthcare, medical treatment, management of citizens, and of course, providing infection status, okay, or updates to everyone is also important. Now, the 4th recommendation I have is very important, which is a top-down approach. There's so many silos in the government business. There's so many silos in the business. I believe that the stakeholder, the top stakeholder, the leadership, the mayor of the city should be driving the implementation of the digital transformation for COVID-19. Now, the last one, of course, is provide policy, funding, support to assist business, including SME, small, medium enterprise, to digitalize their operation as a weapon, okay, to survive, to sustain, and also to expand their business. Now, thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation. And if you have any question, please, when you have time, you can ask me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So that was very, very interesting case study from a very advanced area in technology in Southeast Asia, and to know that what's going there is essential. We in the webinar, we have finished the formal talks, but of course it's never enough to listen to highly distinguished speakers like what we have today, and therefore I would like to go back to the round to create a kind of a Q&A panel from the speakers, Mr. Walid Al-Ghallaf, Dr. Ammar Husseini, Mr. Anjane, and Mr. Wilson Javier, because we need to ask you and listen to you more about certain aspects of the role that you are fulfilling and your organization is fulfilling. We have issue with the share screen. I think Ms. Joso is still on my screen. So I would like to start asking Mr. Walid. Mr. Walid, you have spoken a lot about what Citra has been doing, and also, of course, doing in other areas. But you are the main regulator in the country. We would like to hear from you if there are any initiative or ways that the Citra will get other government organizations or entities and all other industry verticals to have effective and secure adoption of digital technology.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Well, I don't want to repeat what probably mentioned earlier, the importance of technology, and this is out of question now. Technology is very important, but it's not the issue. Probably put rightly by Dr. Ammar and other colleagues. Today, challenge is not technology, challenge is mindset change, challenge is processes, challenge is trust. We need to build trust in the society, trust, people to trust the government services, not only putting government services online, maintaining and sustaining those services is very important. We have to, work on changing the mindset. To be very, very honest, the digitization was not part of government high-level priorities. It was not. It's only put as priority in the last 6, 7, 8 months. And this is a struggle probably all we are in the industry know that. Alhamdulillah, today we can see it's part of the government high priority. And in Kuwait, probably most of my colleagues know that Kuwait economy, the main driver of Kuwait economy is the government by far. It's not private, it's the government. So as soon as the government implements and adopts transformation and digitization, everybody is going to follow. And you have giants, you have big government organizations, they can lead by example. So I think we are now, hopefully we can see, I can see person in person that hopefully we are moving in the right direction with the blessing of the higher authority, being the Prime Minister in this case, and Citra and Kate working closely on making sure we put the right strategy, and then we both implement the right strategy, as probably explained, elaborated by Dr. Ammar, which I don't want to repeat. I think things are going right now, but we have to understand that technology is, comes with its challenge. Privacy is a challenge. What's going on in terms of putting all the systems, putting all the tracking the pandemic spread. It comes with the privacy. Sometimes a clash with privacy. Being the regulator, we have to make sure that citizen privacy, people privacy are not violated. So this is one thing, and we, as I mentioned earlier, we have come up with bylaw, and we are pushing now to even go into a law to protect the consumer or citizen privacy. So that's a challenge. Again, mindset, putting the right processes on place is also a huge challenge. And I understand that Kate is now working on, putting all of that on place with a blessing from the higher management, and also making sure or trying to change the mindset of workers. And it's a challenge without going into details. It's a challenge. Kuwait has its own unity. I mean, it's a uniqueness, I would say. It's a big challenge. It's not easy to, sometimes you can take the horse to the river, but you cannot have it to drink. And this is a genuine problem that we are facing as a government. It's not easy. I hope I can see some صراحة positive progress on this. And I hope by next year we have this webinar again. And by that time, inshallah, we will talk about achievements. Not only we will do and some futuristic actions, but at that time, hopefully we can see something on the ground. And we are very optimistic, inshallah. This time things will move faster, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Basically, that's what we are all hoping for, and we have all the confidence that we will have another seminar webinar next year, and we will be hopefully having a lot of exciting results to tell and to show. And on this aspect, in your response, you mentioned Kate several times, and we cannot not challenge you even more, Dr. Ammar, because we would love, as citizens, as technology people, we would always love to hear more about the great work, the initiatives that Kate is bringing. And you mentioned the app. You mentioned that Sahel. I love the name. I must say that I hope it will be Sahel. But we need to hear more about the overall. Is there any plan for integrating the government operation into a kind of what we can call governmental cloud of services in general?
Thank you very much, Professor. Actually, what you just mentioned, the integration, actually our proposal since the start of this journey back in January is like to have the integration government platform. Actually, currently we have many entities, government entities has a lot of services, but the citizen is dealing with different entities. So the idea is to integrate the government and the back office, so the citizen only deal with the government as one entity through specific channels. And the one channel we are focusing on is the unified government app. And the other one will be, again, the portal, then the National Contact Center. So we'll add more channels, but the same methodology. I mean, one entity, the citizen deal with the government as one entity. The government deal with the citizen as like one person. So the citizen will be, everything will be citizen-centric. Coming to that, having the integration platform is not only IT. Integration platform will consist of regulation, business side, and part of it, some IT platforms. For example, currently, for example, we have appointment reservation platform, Meta. We have another one, we are working with Citra to provide SMS and other notification channels centrally. So we are going toward the shared services For the government, the shared services model is very effective because with the shared service model, you can provide, or at least you can make sure that you have the right skills in central place. Otherwise, for example, cloud is very important technology. Cloud is really one of the enablers of digital transformation. We saw that clearly during the pandemic. All the projects and platforms and applications the government launched during the pandemic, it's all hosted on public cloud. Actually, even at that time, still the regulation and the policies from CITRA not approved yet. But like because of the specific reason, we had the chance to utilize that. And therefore, we could roll out and launch any system within 1 day. Otherwise, if we want to do this on-prem, that it will take months. So clearly, that's very effective. We believe in the using of the cloud, private or public. And this is like, of course, our strategy for the cloud. We should have a government private cloud and also complement that with the usage of public cloud. And this is what we are working with CITRA closely to do this. Currently, CITRA, they have a project with a consultant to assess the workload within government and will give us insight about the workload, what can go publicly to the cloud, what should be privately in the government cloud. This is very important. The policies and procedures issued by CITRA is a real, very important for us as KATE, the implementer for the government. The CITRA is the regulator. So based on the regulation and policies of cloud usage and data privacy, we have a long road for migrating to cloud, private and public, and this is really a challenge. But as Willie said, we are working like closely with CITRA and other friends from other government entity to do this.
Oh, thank you very much. Our questions basically touched on a living project. We were thinking about the futuristic, but thank you for telling us this insightful about the plans of the government. From our perspective, Kuwait has been pioneer in the past in the traditional way by bringing what is called Mujamma al-Wazarat, or the ministries complex, into one building. Now, with your effort, we are bringing the ministries complex to the cloud. We take the Mujamma al-Wazarat to the cloud, where it will serve the same purpose, and it will be probably without parking issues, without problems. So fascinating insight, and I'm grateful for that. We would like to see also from a technology leader, having heard all these plans and projects from key people in the government in Kuwait, we would like to hear from you. How can Huawei support both government as well as other organizations, whether private sector, educational sector, and other sectors in the effort? You are leading the way in digital technology. How can you help these organizations to move faster toward digital transformation? Mr. and Jane, obviously the question is to you.
Yeah, appreciate Dr. Khalid. So I will try to address this in 3 aspects. Number one, because Huawei is still a technology focusing company, so definitely we will keep our investment in the ICT technologies. So as Huawei, we almost cover all the key domains, which is related to the digital transformation, just as I mentioned, from the network to the computing, AI, and even cloud. So I think we could leverage this capability and the persistent investment into R&D to ensure that we can take Kuwait to the most edge technology. So for the next 5 years, Huawei will invest not less than $100 billion in R&D. That means 20 billion averagely per year to ensure that our ICT technology is advanced, so that we can try to enable the government, enterprise, and even the service providers to take the lead in terms of the technology. This is number one. Number two, actually, from the regional perspective, we also would like to be a role of the partner of our government, industry, and even the telecom carriers, because we can leverage our global presence, so we can share whatever the best practice or experience from different countries, so that we can put it into the idea of how to transform Kuwait into a digital society, just as Joe mentioned a lot. And also, our business also covered the telecom area, and also the industry and the enterprise area, so that we can also collaborate with our partners to have very deep insight and innovation on different scenarios to meet the demand of the digital transformation. So I think this is the second. The third, I think we can do a lot with the government and even the education domain, for example, the college and the university, because I think eventually technology and ICT infrastructure is only a tool. So the most important is the people in Kuwait. We should equip ourselves with the capability to utilize the tool. That means the digital talents is most critical for this long journey. So for Huawei, I think we have a long-term strategy to invest in this ICT talent cultivation, and also we have some program like Seeds for Future. So now in Middle East region, every year we actually bring up more than thousands of new ICT talents in this industry. So I think gradually they will be the manpower who try to drive the the digital transformation for the society. And I think at the last but not least, we cover all the domain. We have a cross-domain capability, but it's not like we provide everything. Actually, we will provide an open platform to cooperate with our ecosystem partners, because Huawei will focus on the technology and product. However, for the application, we even some other roles, for example, the system integrator, ISV, or even the service provider. I think we will collaborate with them to share the benefits from this transformation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Jain. We are very proud of, as educational institutes, with partnership with Huawei. As you mentioned, the ICT Academy initiative has been very successful, and probably this partnership in this webinar is a result of this, as well as the training of over 25 excellent Kuwaiti students who graduated from this academy this year. And we can see that this is starting to show results. So this is a true actual result that has been taken. My final question to our colleagues, who again has a very important role as consultancy firms providing data. Government organizations to make decisions to build strategies. Obviously, they need data. They need reliable data to build their decisions on. So knowing that IDC has a vast experience in providing statistical and the data, what kind of key takeaways you give us and give our colleagues in the government about future and what we can do in planning the strategies?
Great question, Dr. Khalid. Yeah, thank you. It's wonderful. And again, I really want to appreciate everyone. It's a phenomenal session. So before, if you allow me to, before I step into the answer, I really wanted to kind of appreciate what Dr. Amar and Mr. Waleed touched upon, right? And the kind of efforts Citra and Kate are doing, both during the pandemic and sort of the forward-looking vision, and more practicable vision, right, to achieve that they put in place. And I really wish them, great success in making that happen. And it's going to impact Kuwait society and the future for Kuwait. So I really want to appreciate and acknowledge that, right? So then, as I get into this question and trying to answer, I think I want to reemphasize the fact, which the rest of the panel talked about, which is DX is a journey. Digital transformation is a journey. It's not a project. It's not a jargon. It's not a technology. And it has to be very citizen-centric, almost like a single window model, right? So it requires a lot of thinking. It's a lot of planning, a lot of execution thinking. So what I would try and say is, as we look into to shape the digital strategies at the highest level and the next levels, couple of key points I want to touch upon is, one is a strategic vision, the second being strategic planning, and third being strategic execution. And I'll probably touch upon each of them just to give a deeper sense. What I meant by strategic vision is, I think Dr. Ahmad talked about it, right? It's great to have a vision, but it's extremely important to have a measurable framework. It's extremely important to have a measurable board or a council to follow through those highest level goals at the country level, at the sectorial level, to make sure the bigger momentum, bigger screen is viewed to the leadership so that the bigger goals are met, right? So that's a strategic vision. And I'm not going to the details with respect to time, but second being strategic planning. And I think we touched upon this, right? It's not a technology project per se. So what's critically important is regulation and policy framework, and how to learn and plan and evolve for a digital future from a government perspective and government agencies perspective, to put a standpoint. Why I'm saying this, because we work very closely with a lot of the governments in the region, worldwide, policy initiators, because that gives the right framework to build the momentum and the critical mass. So that's first thing. The second, from typically any organization standpoint, cutting across vertical, banking, private sector, hospitality, healthcare, it could be petrochemical sectors, to evaluate the maturity of the operating business model. It's not about technology. How do you evaluate the kind of maturity of the business model? And I shared a framework called ETHIC today, right? When it comes to agility, scale, productivity, efficiency, online models, responsiveness, trust model. I think Waleed touched upon this again, and I think Dr. Ahmad touched upon trust model. Ensuring privacy, data aspects, data classification. I know we work with a lot of regulators, even in the region, who looked into different data classification, right? And again, when it comes to forward-looking technology, cloud enablement, I think it's great to hear, Citra talks about cloud-first policy per se. So, but all this eventually has to lead to a forward-looking aspiration of customer journey or citizen journey and expectations. That's what really makes it happen on the ground. That's what brings the realness on the ground to have everyday citizens' life better, whether that's in education or healthcare and other cases. The third being strategic execution. Now, when you look at organizations moving to execution and looking at, technology set or infrastructure set or business process planning, a deep domain expertise is critical in each of these areas. Understanding the local dynamics of the market, customer behavior, social aspects. I think Dr. Khalid, you touched upon learning, teaching and learning, right? How do you make sure that interactivity of thinking come in and then they evolve around it? Then there is critically about real life use cases, not about, it's happened elsewhere. How does it really make happen in the real life in Kuwait, for example? And obviously to focus on a long term. It's a long-term journey. It's a journey. You have to avoid silos within organizations. I think there was an interesting comment came in about, end-to-end app experience. Now, we've seen common platforms like Tashmu in Qatar, for example, FedNet in UAE, for example, that brings in common infrastructure platforms. Open data as a model to flow through functional flow across government entities for one single citizen experience. So we can go into the details. And again, I also want to touch upon ecosystem and partnership. It's not one. The government has to work within entities. It has to have a private participation to have a broader digital journey. So I would say, strategic vision, measurable, strategic planning and execution is critical, and to have the pulse on the ground to make sure it's citizen-centric and deliver the experience of citizen expects for the future. So those are the few takeaways I would like to share today, Dr. Khalid.
Thank you very much, Wilson. Thank you, amazing. I must say, I thought this last session will be a kind of a weaker, but what I found is that basically it is like the cream on the top of a fantastic session. Being an educator, as I am acting as a student today, to listen to amazing talks from yourselves. I would like to give the platform if anyone would like to give a final word regarding this topic, the future of Kuwait, or anything. I will also what do you think about the future of education in Kuwait? What do you need as government organization from education in order to help you achieve this? So I will start with Mr. Walid, if you want to say a few words about as final words, as well as the selfish request to advise us as universities, where should we go, what should we do to better to help you achieve this goal?
Well, I would like first to thank you. Thank you as a moderator, Dr. Khalid, and also Hawaii for arranging for this webinar. I think education is very important. I cannot add more into education. Today, there's a huge gap between young generation and government. Their expectation is really high. The government is not coping with, trying to minimize the gap. But I think they are moving much faster because they are excellent users of technology, so technology is not an issue to them. And also in education, I think education has to be more advanced. Probably private sector is supervising the government. I'm talking about the education of the government, mentioning pre-college school all the way to university. I think we are lagging behind on catching up with technology. The infrastructure is there, the network is there, the devices is there. So to close that triangle, I think content needs to be more available online. And we are lagging too much behind on putting the content online. This is a challenge. Another challenge is getting the right skills in the faculty, whether that's college or pre-college, to make sure that teachers are up to technology and they can use technology. They know technology, and we are also suffering from seeing this lacking behind. We have several projects in the past, silo projects, that flash memory and tablet in the Ministry of Education. Those were failed projects because of content was not available, skills was not available among teachers. So I think education can play a major role on getting the students ready, making sure they use the technology rightly and trustly. So this is what we require from education, and I think education is a crucial part in this society to make sure that we move and hopefully achieve the 2035 master plan. Without education, without the right education, we will not be able to achieve that. And I hope we can see better adoption of technology in education sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Amar, if you would like to add a few words.
Thank you very much, Professor. Actually, this is a very interesting and useful webinar. Bringing government, private sector, and academia together is very important. Digital transformation is a journey where, like, everybody need to work together. Government alone cannot do it. We need to be in partnership with the private sector, big vendors like Huawei and other big vendors. Academia is very important. They are providing the skills. They are really very important to keep up with us about what we need. This is very important. Collaboration is the main key here. We need to exchange our experiences, even unsuccessful one. That's very, very important. Talking theoretically is not helping us a lot. Actually, what we need to know is to exchange what's going on in Kuwait. This is very important. And I think everybody should know the project going on, what's going on. I mean, what's the government focusing about? This is really key things to have a successful digital transformation. And thank you very much for this webinar. I'm looking forward to see more webinars like effective one like this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have wonderful speakers, wonderful content, and to be honest, timekeeping has been amazing without having the moderator to do anything. In normal conferences, I usually have kind of signs to tell people when to stop. It has been a wonderful experience for me. I would like to thank Huawei greatly for their support to the university, for support for the education sector in general, as well as everyone. Thank you for trusting me and giving me the privilege of being the moderator of this session, interacting with prominent people like our guests. And with this, thank you for your time, speakers. Thank you, everyone who joined us today on this webinar. I hope that you found the content of the webinar as useful. You found, you gained a lot of information about what's going on, and most importantly, about the plans and the future for the Kuwait. As my colleagues in the talks spoke about, we hope that to have more of these webinars, and I hope that we will have the same speakers and more speakers to speak about achievements that we reach in Kuwait. We are, as resident and citizen of Kuwait, we are really seeing the change happening, and I hope that this change will continue to the better, and we achieve that the slogan or the title of this seminar. I remind you again what was. It was unleashing ICT potential for a better Kuwait. So I hope that we will always get better and better and better Kuwait, and will be at the forefront of every aspect of life. Thank you very much for your contribution. And with this, we conclude the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.